Rhythm games have been my favorite genre of game ever since I got into them, and at this point I've played quite a few of them. So, I decided I would review and rank every single one I've played tier list style, from S tier to D tier. These will be in order of when I first played them, and if you want to skip to a certain game, there will be timestamps in the description. Without further ado, let's get into the list. Geometry Dash is hardly a rhythm game, but since it's the first game I played that had some rhythm elements as well as a rhythm game style difficulty progression, I thought I'd rank it here. However, I made a review video of it a couple years back that I generally still agree with today, so I'm not going to go through any reasoning as to why I'm placing it where I am. If you want to see that video, the link is in the description. It's a bit cringy and badly made because of how old it is though. I'm going to put Geometry Dash in the B tier. Audiosurf is a really cool concept, but I'm not a huge fan of its execution. It's basically a cross between a puzzle and a rhythm game. The rhythm side comes from the collection of blocks placed in 3 different lanes, which you move between with the arrow keys or mouse, and these blocks are synced to the music. The puzzle side comes from filling the bars located below the vehicle. The more you fill them, the more points you get. However, if you wait too long, or if you fill one bar before the others, the lower amount of points will be automatically added. This adds some interesting strategy, such as intentionally hitting spikes, which removes a block from the bar the lane it's in, to even out the bars. The game also has a ton of other modes, such as other puzzles and other types of movement. This main mono mode is the most competitive and popular. However, there are some major flaws with how this game is executed. First off, all the levels are auto-generated. While this means that there is technically an infinite amount of levels to play, they won't all be fun or even synced well to the music. If there was an editor and an active community, this problem would be fixed. Secondly, there is very little indication of how well you're doing or how much you're improving, which is a massive issue in any rhythm game. There are no letter ranks, no percentage accuracies, not even any difficulty ratings, just arbitrary number scores and a top 10 leaderboard. Thirdly, they removed the YouTube browse feature, so you better hope you have some good songs locally saved. The menus are also a bit complicated, the UI isn't the cleanest, but those are more just nitpicks. Overall, I'd put Audiosurf 2 in the C tier. Get ready for a pretty long section here. If you didn't know, I was once a fairly high ranked player in this game. My peak rank was in the top 400, and it's also my single most played game with hour tracking. As such, I have some very strong opinions here, despite my quitting about a year ago. Let's talk about the good first. The gameplay is unlike any other rhythm game, even the others that are in VR. The slashing motion seems to be immensely more satisfying than the less impactful waving movements that games like Synth Riders and Audio Shield have. But I haven't gotten to play those other two myself. The game is also a great workout. On particularly difficult levels, my heart rate could get well into threshold and even peak zones. The difficulty curve is also great. From the beginning of the game to the late game, there were rarely times where I wasn't improving or at least setting interesting new scores. However, the main thing that drew me back to this game so much was the modding and mapping community. They worked tirelessly to bring a diverse array of custom songs as well as a robust ranking system to the game that can compare even to Osu, which has obviously been around far longer. On top of this, there were always tons of fun mods, like custom sabers, mapping extensions that could extend the playfield or place notes in weird spots, stream integrations, various practice plugins, full multiplayer, and much, much more. The devs were too busy adding great song packs to do any of this, such as BTS and Green Day. Okay, maybe the devs are just shit, but it didn't really matter. The game's player base was also one of the most inviting and funny communities I've been a part of. I used to be pretty active on the Cube community Discord, shoutouts to them. And of course, I have some awesome memories from this game, just because it was my first real rhythm game. and I have to thank this game for getting me to play nearly all the other games on this list. So why did I quit, you may ask? Well, I injured my hand playing. See, you have to have a good grip on the controller to not have any hand or wrist pain, and my grip was definitely suboptimal. I started experiencing hand pain whenever I squeezed my thumb between my other fingers, and when that happened, I knew it was time to quit after over a year and a half of near daily play. I still experienced some remnants of that pain this long after. However, at this point I'm glad I quit because of my busy schedule and also the fact that I picked up running, which completely saps any energy I would have had for this game. But for the longest time, it was a pretty sad thing for me to be forced out on such a sour note. With that, there are also some pretty negative things I have to say about this game. Firstly, the patterns in ranked maps began to feel fairly derivative, unmemorable, and sometimes downright annoying by the time I was about to quit. Unsurprisingly, playing this game for rank began to feel more and more like a chore because of this. Also, the scoring system for this game was pretty bad, as rhythm was not a factor at all. Rather, only swing arc and how centered your swing was on the block mattered to the 115 possible points per note, alongside a not particularly impactful combo multiplier. This meant getting things like 100% accuracy were completely impossible, and it also means I struggle calling this a rhythm game at all. However, these complaints don't take too much away from this game that I once called my favorite game ever made. Beat Saber can go in the A tier. Man, I can't praise this game enough. Unlike most every other rhythm game in existence, my praises come mostly from the music and visuals, and not the gameplay itself. First off, the music comes from Brian Gibson, the bassist for the noise rock duo Lightning Bolt, one of my favorite groups of all time. Their heavy, industrial sound can be seen in this game's soundtrack, but with a much darker, more foreboding tone. He also did the art for this game, which includes grotesque monsters, claustrophobic tunnels, and psychedelic patterns and lighting effects. This music and art combined gives the game its well-deserved rhythm violence description. Nothing physical here is inherently violent or scary, but the atmosphere of the game certainly is. The gameplay is fairly simple. You guide a beetle creature down a track with various twists and obstacles, and new gimmicks are introduced in each of the 9 main stages. There are some interesting mechanics such as kills, optional obstacles, and perfect turns, for those who want to play for maximum score. The awesome sound design, which is best shown by the sound effects used when you perform well, allows these extra mechanics to feel especially rewarding and cathartic. I won't get into the final boss fight, which is arguably the best moment of the entire game for spoiler reasons, but it's an insanely cool ending that contradicts what a rhythm game even should be. My only complaint would be the short length and generally easy difficulty, as you'll be done in about 6 hours unless you want to go for high ranks. The last thing to say is that this game is stunning in VR. Everything gains a much bigger sense of scale and presence, adding to the previously mentioned atmosphere so much. It's the only way I play, and if you have access to a VR headset, it should also be the only way you play. Thumper goes in the S tier. What an awesome experience. Osu became my Beat Saber replacement after I quit, and like just about everyone else, I started my journey with this game in Standard. Firstly, I want to talk about the positive side of this game, which is just how generally fun it is. Doing well in Osu Standard is more gratifying than it is in most rhythm games, and I can't even explain why. Maybe it's because of how tough it is to control your aiming and tapping at the same time, so it feels like more of an accomplishment than performing well on a more simple rhythm game. Playing this game in multiplayer is also very fun, as both me and my friends would probably attest to. The patterns and level designs are also insanely diverse, just due to the fact that notes can be placed anywhere on the screen, and there's little reason to follow any set patterns. Of course, most notes are organized into jumps, streams, bursts, slider passages, and other easily categorizable things, but no two of these feel the same, like patterns in games like Beat Saber and Taiko do. My complaints for this mode stem more from the community and the scoring system than the actual gameplay. Instead of the system's flaws being underweighting or overweighting certain plays like most other rhythm games do, it instead takes the creative approach of making none of your plays matter. Since the system is almost entirely based on combo, missing once in the middle of a map basically invalidates your play. Every note hit adds 1 multiplier, so that the 250th note of a combo will be worth 250 times as much as the first note. This same ridiculous combo scoring carries over into ranked play, as performance points are similarly impacted by a dumb choke. This leads to short, generic, and completely unfun farm maps, not just being extremely common, but also the only way to consistently gain rank. Why does it have to be like that? Other rhythm games may have a combo multiplier, but this is just absurd and ruins competitive play in my opinion. This prevalence of farm maps also greatly hurts the music selection. It is dominated by anime songs and cut songs, and very few songs I actively enjoy are mapped. All these complaints led me to basically quit after 90 hours and move along to other games further on this list, despite the great gameplay. Osu Standard goes in the B tier. As soon as I stopped playing Standard, I almost completely focused on this mode for good reason. Taiko is arguably the most rhythm-based game on this list due to the strict timing windows, meaning keeping time is just as important as reading and speed skills. The gameplay is also extremely fun, with its diverse patterns and emphasis on complex and technical rhythms. Due to the steadily building difficulty curve, I have not once reached a point where I felt like I was plateauing, and no jumps between difficulties have felt significantly harder than any others. The simplicity of the gameplay on easy levels also makes this one of the easiest rhythm games for new players to get into, as it's a lot easier to recognize 2 colors than deal with 4 more keys in Mania, or simultaneously aiming and tapping in Standard. Personally, I can also get so much more into the music than I have on any other rhythm game, and I often find myself slamming my keys on finisher notes or moving my head along with the song. The widely great taste in music Taiko mappers seem to have helps with this so much, and I found so many ranked maps of songs that I've loved since way before getting into the game. Taiko mapping just seems to lend itself to a much more diverse selection of songs than any other rhythm game, as no matter the speed, genre, length, or instruments used, there's always a rhythm to lock into. As a cherry on top, Taiko is the best ranking system and difficulty calculator I've ever seen in a rhythm game. Performance points are based almost entirely on accuracy, but not so much that lower accuracy speed plays are without value. And as it should be in every rhythm game, a combo break has no impact on PP, and doesn't kill your score. Farm maps are hardly even a thing. In fact, the best strategy to gain PP is to play long maps, as they grant a fair amount of bonus points. I'm currently around rank 6000 in this game, but I'm already planning on playing enough to reach 3 digit, it's just that much fun. Osu Taiko gets S tier, no question. Osu Mania was my first vertical scroll rhythm game, but out of the 3 I've played at this point, it's probably the most flawed. A lot of the complaints I have for it are mostly based on personal preference, and honestly, some of them are probably just me being bad at the game, so take what I have to say with a grain of salt. I find Mania to be quite hard to read, as most skins have ugly, narrow bars, strange lighting effects, weird colors, or something of the like. The game also is lacking in features that other VSRGs have, such as specific rate mods, standardized and multiple judgment systems, and a customizable playfield. All key modes are ranked on the same overall leaderboard, which makes your overall rank less useful if you don't play all key modes. For those who are at the top, which is very much not me, it seems like you have to play a high key mode, because top 7 key maps reach higher star ratings than the top 4 key maps. A lot of players also seem to have the same top plays, which makes me think the difficulty calculator lends itself to certain easy farm maps. But I haven't found these myself. The PP system also just doesn't function as well as performance systems on other VSRGs because it's much less specific. The scoring system is also separate from PP, but it maxes out at 1 million no matter the mods you use, so extremely impressive mod plays can be way down on the leaderboards. I also personally don't like the mapping styles too much, as they often focus heavily on long notes, which are just not my thing. Hopefully these complaints don't make me seem all nitpicking and biased, because I still do like this game. The SRGs are just inherently fun. It just doesn't hold a candle to Quaver and Etterna, which will be up soon on this list. Osu Mania can go in the C tier. Who the fuck plays this? D tier. This game is pretty original and fun gameplay. There are way more gameplay elements than the average rhythm game, and they require a mouse or other controller for spinning, as well as a clicking button and a separate beat button. You have catch notes of 2 different colors, some of which must be clicked or clicked and held. You have spin and scratch notes, cleared by clicking or shaking the mouse, and you have beat notes, some of which must be held. It seems like a lot to learn, and it is, but the game's default songs do a great job of easing you into it, and making each difficulty level add just one of these mechanics in. The custom map community, which is built on mods, much like Beat Sabers, is also surprisingly active despite its small size. The scoring system is also quite good, as it gives you ranks not just for the map as a whole, but for every skill set the map tests, letting you see exactly where you need to improve. However, you won't find any sort of ranking system here, except for map-by-map leaderboards, which makes progression a bit less apparent. The visuals, while clean and crisp, can sometimes be a bit distracting. The custom songs are also almost all way too hard for a new player, so you're kind of stuck with the pretty garbage selection of base game tracks until you get good. When the best songs are generic monster cat crap, you know you have a bad soundtrack on your hands. As such, I just don't feel much motivation to play this game, since its novelty kind of wore out after the 10 hours I've played. I know I'd probably have fun if I stuck with it until I was able to play the custom maps, but I'd rather focus my rhythm game efforts somewhere else. I know this makes my opinion basically invalid, but whatever. Spin Rhythm XD goes into the B tier for now. Pistol Whip is similar to Thumper in that the enjoyment stems more from the experience than it does from the actual rhythm gameplay, although to a much greater extent. The game at its core is a VR shooter with automatic movement through the level. However, enemy bullets come toward you slowly, and obstacles litter the path, making dodging by moving your body a significant mechanic in the game. The game has a very arcade-like feel, which makes it very appealing to all. Even my dad gave it a shot and seemed to enjoy it. So why is this a rhythm game? Well, every level is synced to a song through the placement of enemies and obstacles, as well as the pulsing decoration. The scoring system is also half based on shot accuracy and half based on rhythmic precision. Each of these are worth 100 points per hit, with the rhythm scoring based on how close you are to every 16th beat of the song. This allows for you to find your own rhythm in your shooting, which allows for real interpretation of the music when combined with the movements you have to execute. This is one of the only games on this list that rivals Taiko in how much I get into the music. And honestly, it would surpass it in that respect if it weren't for the one complaint that I have for this game. The soundtrack is easily the worst on this list. None of the songs are memorable, as they all come from a similar brand of annoying EDM music. There's also no support for custom songs. Despite this, the game is still one of the most fun and interesting concepts I've played in a while, and it's executed extremely well. I really want to play this game more than the 3 hours I have, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Pistol Whip deserves the A tier. Quaver is one of those better than Mania VSRGs I mentioned earlier. It just fixes a lot of the issues I have with Mania, such as having more readable skins, a more precise scoring system with multiple judgments, leaderboards separated by key mode, and full rate mod support. Not really too much to say here, just a solid take on this classic rhythm game style. Quaver gets the A tier. Arcaea is a mobile-only rhythm game. You have 4 lanes of tap and hold notes, reminiscent of Mania-style games, and arc notes similar to those in Sound Voltaix. The latter of these are the game's best element, as they make full use of the touchscreen format by moving not just left and right, but also up and down. The game has a solid soundtrack, most of which is in paid packs. A lot of the music comes from respected rhythm game artists, and even the ones that don't are perfect for rhythm games, as shown by their spread to custom maps in Osu. I got to give some of the paid music a shot, because I just happened to have $15 of store credit when I tried this game out. But I think even if I hadn't, I wouldn't have been disappointed by what was available for free. The game forces you to unlock songs through World Mode, which can come off as a bit grindy since it has a recharging stamina bar and sometimes forces you into playing certain songs. However, I still find it to be perfect for the mobile game format. The game also has a text-based story with many different characters that are represented in the game itself, but I haven't really unlocked any of that yet, so I can't speak to how good it is. I feel like this is likely the best mobile rhythm game experience you can get, even if it is a bit tough to play on a phone screen sometimes. I'm sure using a tablet would make this game even more fun. I'm gonna give Arcaea the S tier. Now that I think about it, I don't think I can name a better mobile game in general. Muse Dash is similar to Taiko in gameplay, but the colors are split into separate lanes. There are also new types of notes, such as double notes, hold notes, ghost notes, and notes that have a shorter period for reaction. The split lanes make the game much easier to read for a new player, but now that I'm a pretty good Taiko player, I find it a bit more difficult. Another ease of entry change is the default playstyle, which splits colors by hand instead of placing both colors on each hand. I use this playstyle in Taiko as well, because I find it so much easier to improve with, but it's said to hurt accuracy. The leaderboards are also song by song, so don't expect to be playing this game in a competitive way. I don't find any of these things to be an issue, however, as it's very clear this game is geared towards a more casual rhythm game audience. A lot of rhythm games can seem very daunting to new players, so this approach is certainly welcomed. Unsurprisingly, I find the game quite fun, as I do enjoy the Taiko style. However, there are a few issues with this game. One is the strangely sexual approach that this game's art and characters take. I get that much of the game's audience will be into that, but to me it just comes off as uncomfortable and cringy. A perfect example of this is the voice lines that each of the characters gets, if you interact with them in the main menu. Is it just me, or does it seem like they could have just not added this stuff? The tone of the game also comes off as a bit too saccharine for my taste sometimes, reflected by much of the soundtrack and the extremely brightly colored levels. The score is impacted by which character you play as or which of the items known as elfins you use, but there's no way to see which is optimal for different levels. It becomes a game of trial and error if you want to make it on the leaderboards. Muse Dash is definitely B tier. Wait. Forgot to mention some of the songs in the soundtrack. They have Facebook, they have Imprinting, they have this song, and most importantly, they have this song. God, this song is so fucking good. Every single rhythm game, no, every game in general needs this song. If only I could actually play without buying the DLC. On second thought, A tier. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a pretty standard dungeon crawler roguelite that emphasizes rhythmic movement. I've literally played this game for less than an hour, so I have basically nothing to say about it. That's why I've got Campingo here to say a bit more about it.
Crypt of the Necrodancer is very fun. As someone who hasn't played many rhythm games, or any roguelikes before Necrodancer, this was a great introduction. This game was one of the few games where I've generally bopped my head to the music in the game. The music fits it a lot. Ellie was definitely my favorite character. Felt like I was playing a Bomberman rhythm game. The character diversity in the game is great. The art style is very simple, it fits the game well. The game can be challenging at times, however, it is very rewarding, as most roguelikes are. This game is a great introduction to roguelikes and rhythm games, and is relatively cheap on all platforms. There is additionally a Zelda spin-off that expands on the game even more, and introduces Zelda mechanics. so if you're interested into that kind of stuff, definitely check it out. The level editor is awesome, and it's really cool when a game has a level editor this simple but still very detailed. This game is all about patterns. Learning an enemy's pattern makes the game very rewarding and requires logic. Really fun game with little to no flaws.
B tier, I guess? Etterna is far and away the best of the 3 VSRGs on this list. It builds upon the improvements I mentioned Quaver had on Mania. There are a ton of default skins to choose from, and every single element of the playfield is resizable, movable, and removable. The game is the easiest of the 3 for me to read, due to beat coloring instead of column coloring. Hold notes also don't have double judgments, which I personally love. Your skill rating is split up into 6 different categories on your profile, which helps you pinpoint your strengths and weaknesses. There are also extra gameplay elements, such as roll notes that must be spam tapped, and bomb notes that should not be tapped. The game also has a huge amount of settings that let you customize the game to your liking. Maps also come in huge packs, often separated by song genre or skill set, which allows you to spend less time searching for maps and more time playing. All of these improvements lead the game to have a complex and hard to understand UI, but once you get used to it, you instantly see the benefits. I definitely recommend this over the other options to anyone who is even a bit serious about VSRGs, but Quaver is definitely far easier to get into if you're not in that group. Of course, Etterna gets S tier. So there you have it, all 15 rhythm games I've played, ranked and reviewed. Let me know in the comments why I'm wrong. Or why I'm right? No, my opinions are trash.